The cyclical nature of book talk discourse is simultaneously exhausting and fascinating. Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel. My name is D, and today I want to talk about whether or not book talk is actually reading. I forget when I saw this, but I saw this obvious rage bait and wasn't enraged, but was mildly annoyed.
Reading 100 books a year is not actually reading, it's just consuming. It's the difference between eating McDonald's and a steak. Because if we do the math, that's roughly one book every 3 days. Are you really gonna remember all of the books that you read that entire year? You probably can't even name 10 books that you remember. Because there is a difference between reading and consuming. Consuming is just trying to get through as many books as you can. Reading, on the other hand, is being more intentional, slow, letting the story change you and envelop you, and thinking about the characters even after you've read the book. And you can't do that 100 times a year. I'm sorry, you just can't. And look, if you're the type of person that reads 100 books a year, that's great. But don't mistake volume for depth, because there is a difference. Some of the most well-read people I know don't read that many books a year, but the books that they do read are dense, they make them think, they stick with them. And the reason for that is because they read them slowly, they read them with intention, and they remember every single one. So how many books are you reading a year?
And I knew at some point I'd want to talk about this video. I got all corporate and was like, let's circle back to this later. More recently, I saw this YouTube video from a couple of months ago by a creator named Kristen McTiernan.
Supposed readers are outing themselves. While racking up huge numbers of books read every single year, a lot of online creators are making the mistake of admitting on camera that they don't actually read. Sure, yeah, they call it reading. Reading is actually kind of their identity. They make content about books. They have audiences in hundreds, sometimes hundreds of thousands. They post their annual reading goals, often claiming to read 100, 150, or even 200 books in a year, every year. But it's not reading the way you and I would describe reading. These same supposed bookish creators admit they listen to audiobooks at 2.5 to 3 times regular speed, which I think we can all agree is hasty. They also admit to skipping the descriptions in the book. They only read the dialogue because they only care about the dialogue. They skim through the book until they get to the sex scene or the plot twist. That they finish a book in a single afternoon while doing something else, and I don't mean driving.
I also saw this video from a couple of weeks ago by Susanna Friesen called Book Talk's Biggest Creators Aren't Reading the Books They Review. And Susanna's video is more about other creators accusing an unnamed big three of not reading or not actually reading the books that they recommend or something like that. Her video isn't exactly relevant, but I do think that there are some similar themes coming up throughout that video, so that's why I'm including it. All three videos are sort of discussing similar things in their own way. There's like how reading is being gamified, how consumerism, late-stage capitalism is affecting the reading world, and the literacy/critical thinking crisis. Book talk is a snake eating its own tail. There is no shortage of content like this in the bookish internet space. There are tons of creators making content, showing off their aesthetic bookshelves, talking about whatever Colleen Hoover or Sarah J. Maas just published, reading outside somewhere where the lighting is good for a photo, but maybe not good for reading. And then there's tons of content creators calling those creators frauds and saying they don't really read or they don't really care about reading. And then the hot girls who read will clap back with something like, all reading is valid. The cycle continues, and just like whatever these are, it's a dumb cycle. I've made myself pretty comfortable in that, well, at least they're reading camp. And I've always gotten criticism for having that opinion. They aren't challenging themselves. They're only reading at a 6th grade level. Okay, well, what grade level of math do you do? Graph me a polynomial real quick. There isn't like one way or one reason to read. Like, some people don't read deeply. Some people read for comfort, for escapism, for entertainment. And some of this is kind of funny to me. Was it Socrates was worried that writing was going to harm memory? And, back in the day, reading was the doom scrolling of its time. Like in the 40s or 50s, people were concerned that reading the newspaper was ruining the family dynamic because no one was talking to each other. And people thought that novel reading was leading to female depravity. They would lose their minds if they got a hold of this shit, bro. Shout out to Natalia for this gift. I'm never ever reading this. I mean, like, I don't know if y'all can see it, but the sprayed edges are flowers and stuff. That's kind of cool. At least they're reading. At least they're taking in information or consuming stories. And some people, probably a lot of people, are only going to go so far. You know, like, some people only exercise to maintain health or maintain fitness. Not everybody works out to get, like, real buff or real, shredded or, you know, get a BBL or whatever. Some people are only going to go so far on their reading journey, and being smug and mocking new readers isn't going to inspire them to read deeper or read broader. And personally, I think the audiobook discourse is silly. Like, y'all silly, okay? Studies have shown that, like, on a neurological level, there isn't a big difference between physically reading a book and listening to an audiobook. Yeah, there's a bit of there's more decoding effort with visually reading, but really the difference is negligible. The difference isn't big enough to be this pretentious, you know what I'm saying?
Nothing screams insecurity like needing to make someone else feel silly for enjoying something.
Let people be excited by things. Enthusiasm is cool.
Well, it's only reading when you're sitting down with a book in your lap and you can feel the paper in between your fingers, slowly combing over every sentence, letting the words just wash over you. Some people don't have that kind of time, bro. Like, some people don't live those kind of lives. They don't have, like, a luxurious couch or chair to sit in by a crackling fire. Some people got work. Some people got kids. Sometimes, like, if they want time for fiction or a psychology nonfiction book, they got to bump it in their car while they drive, or they're going to read it on their phone or on their Kindle on the train on their way to work. Well, audiobooks are fine. It's just the listening speed that's not okay. Why do you care? I've never understood why people care, you know? Again, there are studies that show that there is very little, like, retention or comprehension loss when listening to an audiobook, like, if you increase the speed up to, like, 1.5 or even 2 times. And even after that, you can train your brain to increase your audiobook listening speed. Neuroplasticity is a thing. To me, it kind of sounds like somebody who sees someone, like, on a treadmill going 8 miles per hour, which is pretty fast, and be like, there's no way that you can do that. You're just trying to get your miles in faster. It's weird. It's unfathomable. Nah, bro, they're just built different. They can handle it, or they work their way up to it. Also, like, the average, like, reading speed is like 300 words per minute, right? An audiobook played at, like, normal speed is like 150 to 170 words per minute. So really, you increase it, you're just, like, catching up with your visual reading speed. I don't really see the problem. And again, I don't really see why people take issue with this, because you don't got to listen to it that way. I feel like some of the people making this kind of content, reacting to book talk, the worst of book talk or whatever, they saw, like, the video of the girl saying she doesn't read descriptions, she only reads the dialogue, which I agree is crazy. Or, like, the tweets or threads or whatever saying that, like, big words in books is ableist and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of decided that that's all of book talk and booktube. They're just like, yep, that's it. That's what the kids are doing. And it's like, it can't be. So to protect their sense of identity as a reader, they create the no true readers fallacy and start acting like snobs. And real quick, I'm going off script. Also, like, the people who are always like, there's no way you're reading this number of books or whatever, because no one has that kind of time unless you're skimming or unless you're listening to audiobooks, which doesn't count or whatever. I don't get why you care. Like, yeah, reading is not a competition, but it feels like a lot of the people who talk about reading 100 books aren't being like, I read 100 books and I'm better than you. So if you feel like that's what they're saying, that might be projection. Even if these people were trying to make it a competition, you don't have to compete. You don't got to play. You can just read. Mind yours. You know what I mean? Anecdotally, I've seen people post about, like, oh, you know, I read 100 books, 120 books this year or whatever. And they're never braggadocious about it. And maybe that's just because it's only a few people I've seen that I just know and they're chill like that. But I don't really see this whole, like, I'm better than you, I'm beating you at this book race. Like, we're acting like we're all in primary school, elementary school, whatever you call it. And, you know, if we read a certain amount of books, we're going to get a pizza party, and we're the only ones who do that. And that's not how it works. We're all adults. You know what I mean? Like, and yes, I know one of you did get a pizza party after you read 300 books in a year because your husband is full of whimsy and joy. Not all of us get that, okay? Just kidding. You're great. Love you. The rest of us, I don't think that's what people are doing. And even if it was, you just don't have to participate, and you don't have to like shut it down and be like, this game is stupid because I'm not winning. In the TikTok and the first YouTube video, there's a comparison being made where it's like reading is like eating food, and there's like, oh, like a really good nutrient dense steak or a gourmet meal, or like shoveling shit in your mouth, whether it's like McDonald's or hot dogs or whatever. And it makes me think of the content creators who shame anybody who isn't eating keto or protein maxing or whatever the new toxic diet trend is. They're the bookish equivalent of the dudes who run around grocery stores with no shirt on talking about how Diet Coke is gonna kill you. We've talked about media diets on this channel before. I personally think that it's important to get like a balanced media diet. Read from a bunch of different genres, you know, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, philosophy, psychology, whatever. Maybe something a little spicy, you know what I mean? Not this, but maybe something else. And the metaphor breaks down a little bit, but there's going to be people who just aren't that adventurous, you know. My ex-roommate, he only ate Nutella and croissants for like a year. And there's going to be some people who only eat McDonald's or fast food or whatever, you know. They're only reading Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros or whatever. Pointing at people and being like, well, they don't really read. They don't like to read because they don't read what you like or read in a way that you deem acceptable isn't going to encourage anybody to expand their literary palette. It just makes you look like an asshole. It can be fun to be pretentious, you know, it can be fun to do things that make you feel smart. And it's certainly fun to be a snob.
Snobs actually do provide value to society, and more of us should be listening to their opinions. And I want to be really clear here between what a snob is and what just like a pretentious asshole is. A pretentious asshole knows more about the hobby or topic than you do, and they think that that makes them a better person than you are. A snob knows more about the topic or hobby than you do, and they want to use that to help you enjoy it better. A pretentious asshole is the person who looks at a beginner reader and shits on them for not having read the classics yet. A snob is the person who looks at the beginner reader and says, hey, whenever you're ready for the classics, let me know. I'll shoot you some recs. There is value in acknowledging that there are people who have been researching and enjoying and gaining knowledge about a hobby or topic longer than you have. And the best ones won't make you feel stupid about it, but they will be tastemakers who improve your life. So let's bring back snob.
Okay, and now I'm going to read a quote. It's a pretty lengthy quote, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to read from Jared Henderson's essay, It Is Good to Be a Snob. I contend that being a snob is a good thing. Snobs have discernment. They can tell the good from the bad. Snobs take art seriously enough to judge it. They ask difficult and probing questions about their own reactions to books, music, cinema, and the like. But if you're a bad snob, as I was in high school, then what you have done is merely pretend to have discernment. You don't ask interesting questions. You might not ask any questions at all. You don't have good tastes. You just imitate those who do. Being a good snob takes time and effort, and you have to be exposed to a wide variety of art. You have to think through your own reactions to it. Being a bad snob is easy. It is a knee-jerk criticism for those who like to put others down. I'm going to pause the excerpt for a split second. Y'all remember that Ted Lasso scene where it's like, be curious, not judgmental? That's what came up for me. Let's think about another example. Literature. I love novels we call classics. The idea being, of course, that these books are some of the best that have ever been written, so we have kept them around. But I also love speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy, the weird fiction of the turn of the century, and so on. If you went to a bookstore and took a random novel off of the classic shelves, if you're lucky to have a bookstore with a separate classic section, and a random novel off the speculative fiction shelves, the odds are heavily in favor of the classic. It will much likely be a better book. There are many explanations to this. Importantly, classics as a category involves a strong quality filter in the act of preservation. The explanations themselves aren't that important just yet. The basic insight we need is that even if you like both genres, if classics can be called a genre, you can tell that books on one shelf tend to be better than books on the other shelf. This raises the hackles of many speculative fiction fans and writers. Ursula K. Le Guin used to get quite upset about the matter. and some of her points were quite good. The assessment of the genre common in her time had very little to do with the writing or the quality of the books, but rather was a dismissal as the genre inherently worse than more realistic fiction. Inherently is the key term here. Assumption was that there's something about this speculative fiction that made it worse, and that assumption was wrong. That was bad snobbery. There is nothing intrinsic to the genre that would make speculative fiction worse than the sort of books that get shelved under general or literary fiction, or even the classics. Just because your books involve spaceships, warriors with ornate swords, or a premise of the Twilight Zone does not mean that your book cannot be excellent. Which is to say, in the putting down of book talk, in the dismissal of what these people like to read, to me it kind of reads like all these dumb girls and their dumb romantasy or whatever. Whereas I know there's good romantasy. It's not common, but there is some good stuff out there. I don't know if Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow is considered a romantasy. It is a love story that spans time. I didn't really like it, I'll say that. I know it's good. I just didn't like it. There is nothing wrong with having discerning taste. And I think someone who just writes you off I'm not going to listen to you because you're a snob is maybe missing out on knowledge that you may have because of your interest in reading. If you're well read, you also probably can give good recommendations. But I think it's bad snobbery. I think it's assholishness to just all over people who are just getting into reading and they're reading what's popular because that's what's available, that's what's been recommended to them. Bad snobbery to write off an entire genre because there's probably diamonds in the rough. It's bad snobbery to be the way you read or the amount you read means that you're not doing it at all. And there'll always be people who will say that it's not that deep. But I think it's just because they don't want to put in the effort to dive deep. But a lot of foodies go really deep into food because they love food. They want to share in the joy of food they've discovered or something like that. There's some film buffs who just love movies and want to share their love of movies. And they understand better than a lot of book lovers that movies can range from absolute peak cinema that pushes the societal conversation forward and hot tub time machine, and they can enjoy both. Maybe not hot tub time machine, but both. I think it's good to be a voracious reader and share your recommendations with people. Reading is subjective and reading is personal. If you like to read slow and critically engage with what you're reading and just read a couple chapters or a couple pages and stop and just think in your cozy little nook, do that. And if you find reading stats annoying because you don't want a scoreboard because you're not playing a game, then I don't know, ignore that shit. Just keep scrolling. And if being a pretentious hater gives you joy, go ahead. But what do you get out of that? What's the point? What do you think's gonna happen? Now, there are certainly aspects of the internet book space that are worthy of criticism. I've made some. I'm gonna make more. I think that book hauls and buying special editions with sprayed edges of books you ain't even gonna read is excessive. And I think book printing, especially on this mass scale and all these different editions and stuff, probably has environmental impact that's, I don't know, probably not akin to fast fashion because there's more people into fashion than there are into reading. I would suspect it's still a significant impact. Now, I've heard the joke, or maybe it's a sentiment presented in a humorous way to offset how it sounds, but I've heard it said that buying books is a separate hobby from reading, and I don't agree with that because we just don't do that with other forms of media like movies, records, video games. If you buy it, you should want to consume it. I think the aestheticizing of reading and books and stuff like that can get a little annoying. There are certain publishing companies that spend more money and time and effort trying to make the outside of a book look pretty, but the text itself is of so little substance that if it were a puddle, you stand in it and your feet stay dry. And the skimming or the only reading dialogue thing is odd to me. I don't think it's as common as people are saying it is, but my assumption would be that people are chasing the dopamine hit from finishing a book, and so they're breezing through it, And it would be hypocritical of me to be oh, people shouldn't make videos like this. I don't care, do what you want, you know what I mean? I make I make content sharing my opinion on random stuff all the time. If you want to be a hater or a rage baiter, that's your choice, enjoy the views. I just think that putting other people down in this like kids these days, I'm not like other girls type beat is whack. And I think that I think creators who make this kind of content, like if they actually want to encourage people to read more, read broader, read deeper, they don't. But like if they did, they're not going about it in an effective way. Shame is not a useful tool if you're trying to make change.
Sometimes we get so frustrated with other people's bad behavior that we feel the urge to shame them into changing, into acting. And we feel justified in doing so, thinking that it's going to change their behavior in a positive way. But it doesn't work that way. Not only is shaming harmful, but it actually stops people from doing the very thing that you want them to do. Psychologically, shame is a threat response. So when someone's shamed, their brain goes into self-protection mode. Instead of focusing on fixing the problem, they focus on surviving that moment. That means shutting down, withdrawing, or avoiding the issue altogether. There's actual research on this. A study by Keltner and Buswell found that when people feel shame, they don't immediately change their behavior. They retreat. They need time to recover before they can even think about taking action. So when you shame someone, you're not helping them to wake up or do better. You're just making it harder for them to act at all. If you actually want to change their behavior, give them room to process, reflect, and recover enough to then take action.
Going back to the fitness influencers, yelling at your phone like you're fat, you're lazy, you need to hit the gym 8 times a week. Like, that's not inspiring. It doesn't work. Shame is a psychological threat. It's more likely to get people to like keep doing their bad habits or disengage with you, especially if you're a stranger on the internet. They're just going to be like, fuck you, I'm going to read what I want, how I want. But I don't actually think that's what people want to do. I think more than anything, these people are trying to build an in-group and keep everyone else out. I once had a student who was the president of this school's poetry club, and they were the only member. All the girls who wanted to join the poetry club had only read Rupi Kaur and Sabrina, I don't remember her last name. And I sat down with them and I explained, like, I understand that poetry means a lot to you and you care deeply about this art form and you've read a lot of classic poetry and poetry throughout history, and that's great. We can't gatekeep art and literature and say that these people are not poets. Reading is for everyone. Reading should be fun, and reading can enrich your life. And I would hate for somebody to miss out on enriching their life or having fun consuming a story that they love or learning information that could help them because somebody on the internet made them feel like shit before they even got into it. But on the flip side, hey, if newbies, LARPers, people who aren't gang bother you that much, ignore them. Reading should be fun, and if these people bother you so much, tune them out. Curate your algorithm so you don't see that kind of content anymore. Anyways, that's it for me. Losing daylight. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, Peggy Lou Who and JJ Valdez. Patreon.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel, get some bonus content, and join my private Discord server. Ko-fi.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel but don't want another monthly subscription to manage. Or you could just like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.